The New York Giants had an interesting 2025 season. It was a lot of fun when it started. You had Jackson Dart come in and play. You had Cam Scatterboo and the fan favorite that he is. And I enjoyed watching them. And I don't like Jackson Dart because I'm a State fan and he's an Ole Miss guy, and so it's really hard to root for him. But they're a goofy pair in that backfield, and the memes and the tweets. Did you see the one that was they asked him, would you rather do, if you're on cam, are you gonna do kiss cam or chug a beer? And they're like, wait, am I doing it with Scatterboo? That was pretty funny. So they're a really fun duo. But before we get into the off season, I'm going to talk about this last season. Team MVP for me was Brian Burns. He's a guy they brought in from Carolina, led the team in sacks, and then had as many as the next four guys combined. I think it was 15 sacks he had, and the next four guys combined for 15 sacks as well. So really dominant on that defensive line, which says a lot because that was a defensive line we were really intrigued by coming into the season. They have Dexter Lawrence on that defensive line. They've got Kevon Thibodeau and Abdul Carter on that defensive line. They just have a lot of really interesting pieces, and Brian Burns stood out. So I'm going to give him my team MVP. Do y'all disagree? Would you throw another name out there?
Raheem Nunez-Roches. Remember that name?
I do remember that name. It's
That's a joking one.
I couldn't pull it up, but I was thinking what's the guy that we couldn't figure out who it was when we were doing the what's it called? The game.
We did it a Giants game?
Yeah.
I can't recall.
Yeah.
But he was fourth on the team in sacks. I thought he had a really good year. He had 3 sacks.
Okay.
Huge year. Shout out him.
My unsung MVP, my unknown guy, Dane Belton. Do either of y'all know that name?
I did not know that name.
All right, so that's a good pull by me then. It's 2022 4th-round pick. He's kind of started to see more action. This is his 4th year. He saw 5 starts in 22, 2 in 23, 6 starts in 2024, and then he started 9 games in 2025. He was second on the team in tackles, and he had the lowest missed tackle rate among teammates with 15-plus tackles. So a really consistent tackler. I believe he's a safety. So he's just a guy who's kind of gotten more opportunities and taken advantage of those opportunities and played really well, which is really good, and we'll get into why later. But now we can start talking about the offseason. They started their offseason by bringing in a new head coach. They bring in John Harbaugh from the Ravens, who spent 18 years at the Ravens, won a Super Bowl there, was a really successful head coach, and it felt weird for him to be fired, but I think it was kind of time because people started to question his lack of postseason success with Lamar Jackson. They'd been, I believe, I don't know if they ever made the 1 seed in the AFC, so I'm not going to say they did. They did? Okay.
They did, and then they lost to Derrick Henry and the Titans in round 1. That was the year Lamar, or round 2, I should say, the divisional round.
Cool.
Lamar was the MVP that year.
Yes.
And then Derrick Henry threw a touchdown pass to Corey Davis on what is one of my favorite playoff plays of all time.
That's wild. And so, people started to wonder, is Harbaugh wasting Lamar Jackson's prime? Lamar Jackson is a dynamic quarterback, one of the most, insane quarterbacks to watch play football. And so they move on, and that means the Giants are able to swoop in. I think he was one of the first head coaching hires of the cycle, and they they get their guy early on, which sets him up well for this season, right? Harbaugh's won a lot. He's won a lot of games in his 18 years at the Ravens. He brings in some other experienced guys. He brings in Matt Nagy from Kansas City, who Kansas City moved on to bring back Eric Bieniemy. But he's had a lot of success there at times. I believe he was he the head coach of the Bears, or was he the OC there?
He was head coach.
Head coach. So he's had some success with Mahomes.
He's the classic. The gif of his face after Cody Parkey double doinks is a very classic gif.
But that's their offensive coordinator for this season. Defensive coordinator is Denard Wilson, who was at Tennessee, and I believe has been the DC there for the past several years. And I was looking up on Wikipedia and hit the good thing they said about him was they credited Jeffrey Simmons 2 All-Star, not All-Star. I've got NBA in my head.
All-Pro.
All-Pro. Thank you. I have NBA in my brain now because it's time for the NBA. But his All-Pro appearances. It was he was the DC when Jeffrey Simmons made his 2 All-Pro appearances, and I was like, I don't know how much he had to do with that, but we'll put that in the Wikipedia bio. So that's their DC, that's their coaching staff for the upcoming season. A group of guys that have not worked together, as far as I know. I don't think either of those guys have been on the Ravens staff, so it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. If you're a Ravens, not a Ravens fan. If you're a Giants fan, let us know what you're thinking about this staff and this hire and this group they've brought together. Free agency, they do have some pieces who are due up for extensions or going to hit free agency, hit the open market. The first one I talk about is Wan'Dale Robinson. Wan'Dale, I think, stepped up kind of in a big way this year. Not big enough to have gotten MVP, team MVP over Brian Burns, and he's too big a name to be the unknown. Prior to this season, I think he would have been very deserving of an unknown, but he kind of made a name for himself. In the absence of Malik Neighbors, who goes down with an injury, ACL injury, Wan'Dale steps up and kind of becomes Jackson Dart's guy and has over 1,000 yards. He's, in my opinion, a guy I'm circling in red as bring back, especially...
Unlucky. He's not coming back.
Is he a commander?
You'll get to it later. We'll get to it later.
Oh, boy. You've got him going somewhere else in your other primers.
Possibly.
I think the Giants should try and bring him back, and I expect they will try to. It is weird because this is, like I said, a different coaching staff, and so maybe they come in and they have other guys they want to try and go get. Maybe Wan'Dale just doesn't do well in outgoing. I assume they have exit interviews, stuff like that, with new coaches coming in. So I'll be interested to see how that pans out. But if I were a Giants GM, I would try and bring back Wan'Dale because he had a good repertoire with Jackson Dart this season. Jackson Dart is the guy that you spent a first-round pick on. You traded back into the first round for, correct?
Yeah.
They trade back? That's what I thought. Trade back in for him. So, this is a guy that you want to give opportunities. You don't want to do what the Chicago Bears did and not give Justin Fields weapons to succeed and then move on from him. Because while you may have been right, that's poor process. While you may have been right to move on from Justin Fields, it's poor process to invest a first-round pick in a quarterback and then not give him weapons to actually see if you were right. And so you're going to want to give Jackson Dart weapons. Malik Neighbors will be coming back from injury. And then so having a really good wide receiver 2 who played as a wide receiver 1 for a lot of this season, I think is a really good step in the right direction for the Giants. They're going to be losing an offensive guard and an offensive tackle. I believe I'm not going to. I think Illuminor is a right tackle.
Yes, he's the right tackle.
And then Van Roten is a left guard.
He's played right guard this year.
Both those guys have played a lot of snaps for a lot of games for the Giants over the last 2 seasons. Van Roten has started all 34 games over the last 2 seasons. And then Illuminor started 31 games. I think I'm going to say let both of those. If I were the Giants, I would not be afraid of letting both those guys go because I think they should be addressing offensive line in the draft. I would have them take an offensive lineman early in the draft and then also in the second round as well, I believe. So we can go ahead. Do y'all have any other free agency stuff? There's some other. Are there any other names that I left off, JP?
Evan Neal is a former first-round pick for them who was a backup. He didn't play a single snap for them this year. Who's something of consideration. They have no reason to bring him back, but Russell Wilson is a free agent this coming off season.
Miami bound.
Jameis Winston is not a free agent, so they do have their backup quarterback and potentially the GOAT backup quarterback, although his win-loss record as backup quarterback is not great. His vibes is through the roof. It may be Mount Rushmore level vibes in terms of what he can provide to a locker room.
Sure.
I think for the Wando one, it's such an interesting conversation of do you even consider taking the risk of letting Wandale walk to save money because I don't know if you mentioned it, but they only have $5 million in cap space this coming year.
I did not mention it. That's a good point.
Yeah, so it's not a ton of money. They could restructure and make enough to re-sign Wandale, or do you take the risk of waiting for the draft and hoping if Carnell Tate's their guy, Carnell Tate slides past Tennessee or even the Jets or someone trades up to them at 5. And then they could pair Carnell Tate with Malik Neighbors, and that's 2 guys on rookie contracts, and that saves you money to allow you to be able to spend that money in free agency somewhere else, potentially. Or is that too risky? Because the Titans very well could take Carnell Tate at 4, considering the weapons that Cam Ward has, although he loves them. They are not great. I do think that's a very interesting conversation.
Remember when he said Calvin Ridley was a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL?
Me?
No, when Cam
I'm
Ward
sure he
said
said Treylon Burks was too.
Did he say they were both top 5 guys or something like that?
I think
said
he had
it, like,
Restrepo just on the outside looking in too.
Yeah, it was that was a wild Twitch stream. Or
I
Instagram
respect the
Live.
loyalty.
Yeah, that was a wild. I think it was before he was drafted. He just knew he was, so he was like laying the groundwork. That was wild. Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt. It just you said something about it and it made me think of it.
Yeah, I wonder if the Wandale thing is. I think it's one of the key conversations for them in this off season. Do you take that risk of, hoping a guy's there at 5? Like if they really like Jordan Tyson, maybe it's not even like a debate, and they could just know like, oh, we're gonna get Jordan Tyson or Carnell Tate at 5.
Sure.
Yeah, I would say if you do that, then you need to try and bring back those offensive linemen.
Sure.
It depends on what you want to try and address through the draft, because whichever you don't address through the draft, you need to handle and either retain guys or go out and find their replacements. I don't think Van Roten and Illuminor had terrible seasons. I think Van Roten had 2 sacks allowed. I confess, after Scadaboo got hurt, I didn't watch a lot of Giants games, and so I didn't see a lot of eye tests for their offensive line to tell you how good it was, or to tell you if it was awful. I know Andrew Thomas is a fantastic offensive tackle and a fantastic left tackle. So if you're Giants fans and you think that you need a better offensive line to protect your guy at Jackson Dart, then so be it. I think you can draft, and that's where we can go and move to the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Offensive tackles are apparently creeping up mock drafts, and wide receivers are falling. This is according to guys like, I believe, Daniel Jeremiah has had Maui Noah go in the top 5.
Mel Kiper and Phil Yates have also both done that.
Yeah, so it's something that a month ago it was like 3 wide receivers in the top 10. As recently as this past week, I've seen mock drafts where no wide receivers go in the top 10, and it's 2 offensive tackles. So things are moving.
That same thing happened last year, too, and it kind of surprised us. That was more so it happened on draft night, and it surprised us. Will Campbell we thought was going to go high, but Kelvin Banks shocked me, obviously. But it was more so because I wanted Shador at that point. But also Tyler Booker at 12 to Dallas was kind of shocking.
Oh, yeah, that was wild.
Yeah,
and that wasn't even an offensive tackle. I mean, if we saw a Vega creep up in that top 15 or a Pregnon going like at 22, 28, like, because I believe right now he's in the 40s on the PFF big board. We have a lot to learn. The combine starts, I believe, Sunday, and then goes to the following, or maybe it's next Sunday. I'm not positive which it is. I saw someone say I'll be there from Sunday to the following Monday. I don't know.
I think it starts next week.
Okay. So it's coming up, and we'll learn a lot more about all these guys, and we'll learn a lot more about how teams and scouts view these guys. But my approach would be to bring back Wandale on that wide receiver 2 money, because he's not going to get wide receiver 1 money anywhere.
I don't know. People may overpay.
Maybe. I mean, this is not a great free agent class. I think it's the best free agent now, Tyreek Hill or Mike Evans, right?
Yeah.
So those are the top wide receivers on the free agent market. So somebody might be willing to overpay, but if I were the Giants, I'm trying to bring back Wandale and then address offensive line in the draft, which it does work out well. I ran a mock draft earlier, and like I said, Maui Noah at 5 seems pretty reasonable. And then at 37 is another, so it's actually interesting. Carnell Tate and Maui Noah are both potentials at 5, and then at 37, Omar Cooper Jr. and Emmanuel Pregnon from Oregon are also both options. So there's wide receiver and offensive line that fits in both of those slots at 5 and 37. So it kind of depends on what the Giants want to do with the guys they have on the roster and who they retain. That's how you're going to, I think, will tell us a lot about how they're going to draft.
Sure. It's such an interesting thing. Off the top of my head, I can't remember a lot of scenarios where it felt like a team had a true clear cut number 1 receiver, top, 7, 8 receiver in the league, and then had the ability to take the best receiver in the draft that in a given draft. We've seen a lot of times those teams have those elite receivers, and then they draft another guy later in like the late first or early second. I think of like Jordan Addison with the Vikings.
Sure.
I think of T. Higgins was the first pick of the second round for the Cincinnati Bengals, although he was a year before Jamar Chase. I wonder.
Are you saying you can't remember a time when a team with a top 8 wide receiver has had an opportunity?
Yeah.
Or has had like reasonable cause, I guess?
Both.
Okay. Because I bet I could go back and find a time where a team with a top 8 wide receiver has had a top 5 pick.
Mm-hmm.
But you would have never been like, oh, they should take a wide receiver. That's what would help them.
Yeah.
But with the Giants, it's like, it would make sense. I think that's what's probably going to be the more niche, like unprecedented situation is like I know they already have Malik Neighbors, but what would really help them out would be like a wide receiver 1 is a wide receiver 2. So, but that'd be interesting. I'm not sure. I'd have to think about that more.
Where would you guys go? Personally, I would like to go offensive line if Jackson Dart's our guy, which who knows with Harbaugh if that's his guy. But I would go with the franchise tackle.
I'm gonna go. I don't think he'd take the job if it wasn't his guy.
Sure.
Because he was the most coveted.
Yeah.
Like, go to the Dolphins and get top 10 pick. What are they? 11, I believe.
11.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe you start prepping, and then you get your guy in the future. I don't think he's gonna go somewhere that's already got so much invested in a guy. They traded up their picks. I don't know what picks they had to get rid of, so I'm gonna pull up what they have left. I just don't think that he would have taken the job if he wasn't a fan of the guy that he expects to be coaching, or at least what he thinks. Yeah, so they don't have their 3rd round pick this year, which I don't know what they do have their 1st round. I don't know what they had to trade to get back up into that 1st round pick last year, but
might have been 2 seconds.
Yeah,
because Jalen Noel and the other Iowa State receiver were both 2nd round picks for Houston. It might have been 2 firsts.
I think it was a 2nd and a 3rd.
2 seconds.
It was a 2nd and a 3rd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask if me personally, I would go offensive line first, and then with how deep the wide receiver class is, go receiver second.
That's
But
probably where I'm at.
Where
too.
would you guys subscribe?
Because I would go offensive line, get one of those good tackles you can put on the other side of Andrew Thomas. I feel like the offensive line has been a bit of a sore spot for the Giants, even like the past 5 years. I mean, even like take like a guy like Evan Neal high, he doesn't pan out. Guys like that. Obviously, Andrew Thomas has worked out, but I feel like they've tried to fix it. It's maybe gotten a little better, but it's still not like a great group, and so I think they're in a good spot to like really shore it up and make it like an elite room.
I would also love to see them. What did I say they had? They've got their 1st and their 2nd and no 3rd. That's kind of tough because the 3rd round wide receivers are actually interesting right now in the PFF big board. So you could even go offensive line 1st and 2nd round, go tackle, guard, and then in the 3rd round they don't have their pick. Maybe they try and trade back up into it, or maybe they get somebody in the 4th. But Malachi Fields, I've actually seen somebody. Sam Monson actually has talked about him going in the 1st round. He loves Malachi Fields out of Notre Dame, and that'll be somebody to watch as we go into the NFL Combine. Other guys you could get, Zachariah Branch from Georgia, you could get him in the 3rd round. And like I said, they don't have the 3rd round pick, but it's a lot easier to get into the 3rd round than it is the 1st round. And so if you can get offensive line in the first 2 rounds, then you can get that wide receiver to complement Malik Neighbors in the 3rd or 4th round. So that's what my approach would be.
Sure. I think that is kind of against what the consensus of the public is right now.
Really?
I think that's how fans feel, how the early draft guys feel, where Carnell Tate's being mocked a ton to New York at 5. Maybe that could be one of the surprises of draft night, where they pass on Carnell Tate and it really is the offensive lineman going high once again. I wonder if that's the way that'll go for New York.
Yeah.
That's the way I'd personally go. I would love to add another offensive lineman to protect Jackson Dart because he only played 12 of the 17 games last year. Now he didn't get to start for the first 3 games because Russell Wilson started. But he missed 2 games where Jameis ended up having to play. He went to the tent. It felt like 75% of the games he was in the tent for something, which is his own damn fault because he's an idiot and dives into people for whatever reason. Has no, worry about protecting himself. Force him to be protected by having a good offensive line is the way I would approach that.
Yeah. I think 100 times out of 100, I'm taking a 1st round tackle and a 2nd round wide receiver as opposed to the other way around.
Sure.
I just feel like tackle. I guess it's the meme, right? It's would you rather have offensive line and no one downfield?
It's the age-old question.
Or no offensive line and an open guy downfield? I would rather have the offensive line and no one downfield, but I think that you can find somebody to get open downfield in the 2nd or 3rd round. I feel a lot less confident about your ability to play well in your first year as a 2nd or 3rd round tackle. 2026 goals. Mine is a little ambitious. It's very ambitious. I put make the playoffs. John Harbaugh comes in and has made. I think he won the AFC North in like 6 of the last 8 years there or something. Maybe it was 6 of the last 9. He won the AFC North a lot. He's a very winning coach, and the NFC East is a weird division. It has been. This was the first year in the last 15 to 20 years that somebody won it back-to-back years. Is that right? The Eagles won it for the second year in a row, which hadn't happened in eternity. The Commanders are in a weird spot where a lot of their roster is old.
We're back. Don't worry.
All right.
Don't sweat it.
Breaking news. The Commanders are back. Commanders have an old roster, and while they do have a fantastic quarterback in Jaden Daniels, they still have a lot of things to figure out. So we'll see how that goes for them. The Cowboys, if they fix the defense, they have a fantastic offense, but they've got to fix the defense. And then you got the Eagles, who there's questions about the coaching there and the chemistry there and just some of the weird locker room stuff and A.J. Brown. And the vibes are just not good in that building, even as they won the division this year. With, the offense not throwing the ball 1 week and then dropping, 380 yards through the air and, 4 touchdowns. It was just a weird year for the Eagles. So for the Giants, I think in this chaotic NFC East, this is not like the NFC North where every team you face is going to be could win the division, any other division in football except maybe the Vikings. This is just a weird division to play in. You're going to play a 4th place schedule. I believe, right? They had to have been the worst team.
Yeah, they play.
Commanders, I know y'all were not
schedule.
great.
We won 5. They won 4.
That's tough. Okay, I thought that's what I thought. So Giants finish 4th. You get to play a 4th place schedule. You'll get to play some cupcakes.
The 3 teams that are there are the Cleveland Browns, but then you have Tyler Shuck and the New Orleans Saints, and then sadly the Detroit Lions
That is
also
tough.
finishing at 4th.
That is tough.
Counts as one of them.
So
they will play the NFC West. So you got the Rams, Niners, Cardinals, Seahawks, and then they'll play the AFC South. So Houston.
I don't hate that.
The Indianapolis Colts, the Jaguars, and Cam Ward and the Titans.
I don't hate that. I think you could pick up 2 wins against the AFC South, and I think 1 win against the NFC West. I think you could beat the Cardinals. So that's 3, and then I think I'll give you the 3 wins from your 4th place schedule because that's 6 wins, and then you pick up 3 wins, 2 to 3 wins in your division. You're 8-9, 9-8. That's in position to all right. Now you need 1 upset, and you're in the wild card. So that was my goal, is make the playoffs. Year 2 of your quarterback. You either are in this draft getting him the weapons or the offensive line that he needs. Defense, I think that they've got, like I said, fantastic pieces in the defensive line. Maybe there's some other spots they probably need to address, but I think this team is in a spot to take a step next year, take a step forward. Not a Patriots year 2 kind of leap under Drake May, but I think it's a step forward nonetheless.
You also got to hope Jackson Dart doesn't get himself killed. This, I'll be here in 5 months. Maybe I'll sing a different tune. I think this is one of the more ambitious, realistic goals we've heard through all these primers. The NFC East is a little goofy, but I think they have to rack up wins in the NFC East to make the playoffs. And all of the other 3 teams are going to be fighting like hell to get better. The Cowboys always are trying to get better. Doesn't always work. The Commanders are not happy with their 5-win season. You got to think the injury luck reverts a little bit positive their way. The Eagles still have a great roster, and even if there's some dissension and whatnot, still going to be good. In your calculations, you gave them 3 wins against the 4th place scheduled teams, but Tyler Shuck, man, he's ready to roll next season. The Lions, once again, they're not going in any sort of rebuild. They're looking to bounce back. I think it's just a really tall task to ask for the playoffs.
I think it's gonna be a really trendy pick, and I can see, some reasoning for it. And I don't think it's a realistic goal, but I don't hate it as a goal whatsoever. Sure. I would say for me, I would prefer a realistic goal of being, quit being in the same bubble and conversation as the New York Jets in terms of just being a disaster class.
Yeah.
Because since Tom Coughlin, they have been nothing but a disaster class. They've made the playoffs twice, but they've gone through head coaches in Bob McAdoo, Pat Shurmur, Joe Judge. Brian Dable had the 1 good year and then 2 awful years. or 3 awful years, I should say. You would hope with John Harbaugh that is going to be something that is not the case anymore. And I think that's why people may be, trending on the New York Giants this coming year. But I personally think they need to just worry about not being associated with being a New York disaster class, and more so a New York team that is fun to watch. A lot of people are going to cheer for them, and they maybe could find their way into the postseason, and then maybe one day they get the postseason success thing, off their plate. Because I think of like the New York Knicks and the Yankees are two of those teams where they are finding the postseason, and a lot of people are cheering for them. A lot of New York fans are cheering for them, and they're not viewed anymore as disaster classes. The Yankees never have been, but the Knicks, were a team that had to do that. Yeah. I think the Giants want to rejoin that class of Knicks, Yankees instead of the New York Jets and the Brooklyn Nets.
I'm looking for them to try and find like 7 wins. It's like a pretty good realistic goal. But even more than that, talking about them not being a disaster, like they become the joke of, oh man, they're really terrible, and they win a couple games at the end of the season that don't matter when they really shouldn't win them. Maybe like flip that a little bit, and it's okay. There's 4 weeks left in the regular season, and they have still like alive to make the playoffs. Hey, we go 3-1 in these last 4 games. Yeah, we hit 9-8. Maybe we make the playoffs. Something kind of crazy like that. Instead of by week 10, it's kind of like, well, we suck. On to the next season.
Yeah. And JP, just to kind of emphasize what you said, since 2018, they've picked 2nd, 6th, 4th. Then they picked 20th and 21. Then they picked 5th, 24th, 6th, and 3rd. So that was what I did in the last 8 years, 6 top 10 picks.
They haven't won the division since they won the Super Bowl, and they've finished second twice, or 3 times in those 14 years. So in their division, they finished second in their division. They haven't won the division since they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and the playoff win they had was against the Vikings, who were 11-0 in one-possession games.
Daniel Jones, more playoff wins than
If man,
yes, Justin Herbert.